Yeah, because of hello. Yeah, good morning.
Rosmita, good morning.
Yes, Dr. Collins.
Morning. I just want to know whether you are set, you and your team, so that we can start. Are we ready? I think
yes, we are ready.
Okay. Right. So let's start. Let me take this opportunity to welcome all of you, ladies and gentlemen, to the 4th Water Resources Institute monthly webinar. As some of you are aware, we started this monthly webinar series in December, and this is our 4th. And the aim of these monthly webinars is to share really knowledge and experiences amongst ourselves. And for the 4th webinar, we are happy to welcome a team from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. They will be taking us through a topic: barriers to registration of local farmer crops, varieties on the Uganda National Register, on varieties understood. We'll be hearing from Dr. Rosmita Birungi, who is the Value Chain Development Officer at FAO Uganda. We'll be hearing from Dr. Kennedy Gobokwe, Team Leader, the Climate Change Program at FAO Uganda, and Madame Brenda Piroya, who is the Regional Office Coordinator for FAO Uganda. So I want to welcome everybody who has made it to this webinar. As we always do, we'll have a presentation made, and then after the presentation, we shall have opportunities for comments and questions. But you can also put your comments, questions in the chat. So without wasting any more time, I would like to invite Dr. Rosmita Birungi to lead us through the session, and Rosmita will help us to get through all the various presentations. I will come back when we reach the time for questions. Over to you, Rosmita.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Collins, for that introduction. Our participants, colleagues, friends online, you're welcome to this webinar. This webinar is organized in collaboration with FAO. FAO has been a very close collaboration with the Water Resources Institute since inception. And so for us, this is a very important activity to bring together issues of seed, which is very, very important for the farmers, and also the issue of water. And this kind of integration of the two dynamics is very, very important for FAO, and also in terms of our expectations or aspirations for the Water Week 2023. The focus was on building climate resilience. And so we cannot build climate resilience, we do believe as FAO, without addressing the critical issues of water and environment. So this comes in at a time that we are after the Water and Environment Week, and the issues that came out of the Water and Environment Week were triggering further deliberations on issues that did not get the right attention at that time, but seemed very important and subtle. And so as FAO, we felt that that was very important to give them a separate space for people to continue to deliberate or to dialogue or using online systems. So members, you're welcome to this webinar. And without wasting time, I would like to invite the team, the leadership team of climate change here in FAO, to give us some key highlights and background notes to this webinar. I think before I do that, I would like Francis to share the layout of the program so that we can know what we are doing, when is it going to end, and how is it going to end in terms of content. Over to you, Francis, for sharing the program. Francis,
Zumita, probably you have, I don't know whether you have sharing rights. Okay, it is there. Okay, fine. Over to you again, Rosmita.
Okay. Yeah, so colleagues online, I thought it was very important to know what we are going to discuss and the frame of our discussion for the webinar. So we are going to have an opening remark from the leadership of the climate change program here in FAO. That is the opening remark and keynote. The leadership will know how it will be presented. And then we shall have, that is Dr. Ziwa Emmanuel and Dr. Kennedy Ibokwe. Those are our team leaders within the program. And then we have a video, a very short video to give us the importance of water for climate resilience in agriculture. And then there we shall have a presentation, just short presentation, about 10 slides, but they will be delivered within something like 5 minutes to 7. An overview of seed system in Uganda, focusing on the policy and institutional context. And then we shall have the field experience of the farmers on seed system barriers by Ms. Brenda Piloya. And then we open it for discussion. So the bigger part of this webinar is the discussions, because we would like to hear more about people's lived experiences on the barriers. And then we shall have a wrap up and closure by the ministry and the Water Resources Institute. So they will know how they will do it for us. So in the nutshell, that is what we have from 11 up to, I think, midday. I don't know, Francis, the duration for the webinar. So in the few hours that we have, this is what we are going to discuss, and the expectation will be delivered in the keynote that we are going to have. Thank you. I submit. And I invite Dr. Ziwa Emmanuel to represent the leadership of the climate change program here in FAO. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosmita, for the introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm Emmanuel Ziwa, the Assistant Team Leader for Climate Change Program in FAO Uganda. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you all to this webinar, and also thank our colleagues here in FAO who have been working closely with colleagues in the Ministry of Water and Environment and the Water Resources Institute to organize this webinar. Dr. Karist, we appreciate your efforts and leadership to have us work closely with you this far. I bring you greetings from the team leader climate change and FAO family. And I will not get tired of welcoming everyone to this webinar once again. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar on barriers to registration of local or farmers crop varieties on Uganda National Register of Varieties understood is coming at a time when the country is looking at increasing productivity at the farm level. We have increasing population, but our land mass is not increasing. When we look at projections of our food demand by year 2030 and year 2050. Most of the foods that we consume in the country, both crop and livestock products, we expect production or supply to increase or to have increased by up to 200 to 300%. Now, this comes in at a time when we are all sure that we cannot increase significantly the agricultural area. We have limitation in this. One of the things that we have to do is to increase production at farm level in the existing farmlands that we have. But this, we are also at crossroads with nature, as climate change is also on the other side, driving most of the gains that we are having in especially the agriculture sector. So having abundant food that we all vie for in the years to come, even including today, there is a great need to tackle climate change. How can we adapt to climate change in the agriculture sector? And adapting to climate change, which is manifesting largely in terms of either delayed onset of rains, prolonged droughts, erratic rains that we cannot really understand when it is going to rain and when it is going to stop, reduced number of rainy days in the so-called rainy season, shortened rainy seasons, and so on. It brings us to the ground and to think about the varieties that we have, whether they can push us through such experiences of climate change. And as we look at the varieties, the availability of seed of these varieties to the farmers also becomes a concern. So this webinar on understanding aspects or barriers related to registration of crop varieties is really has come in at a time when it is needed the most. We understand that in Uganda, most of the farmers are actually using seed that they produce by themselves. However, it is not known whether they are doing it in the right way, whether they have the right varieties that match farm level, the desired productivity at farm level, and also helping them adapt to climate change. All of these aspects are really not well known, but the fact we have is that the production of most of the crops we have in Uganda is about a quarter of what is expected. When we look at crops like maize, beans, cassava, sweet potatoes, and so on, what the national average for production of these crops is ranges below a half or even a quarter of what the National Agricultural Research Organization, which develops these varieties, expect. But also, to our dismay, is that productivity at farm level, some of the farmers in some regions, is also below half of the national average. When you look at crops like maize, for example, there are varieties which NARO describes as varieties that can give us up to 5,000 or 6,000 kilograms per acre. National average is 2,500, but we have areas like Karamoja region and West Nile where average farm level production can go as low as 1,000 kilograms or even 800 kilograms. Now, this means that possibly there is a disconnect or there are challenges within variety development, seed availability, and awareness about the existence of these seeds for farmers to adapt. We also understand that we have crops of different types. We have perennial, we have annual crops, we have crops which are vegetated, which are propagated vegetatively, and those that are vegetated by seed. We also have crops which are vegetated by the two methods, both seed and crops, both seed and vegetative. But we also understand that in a bid to increase and prime our seed systems, there is still a challenge of letting the farmers adapt. I think, first of all, letting farmers appreciate that there are new crop varieties and seeds that can help them through the challenges that they are facing, including challenges like production of indigenous crops, and also increased adaptation to climate change. But also we have cases where indigenous crop varieties and seeds that farmers have are superior in some aspects compared to the commercial varieties. How we harmonize the superiority of indigenous versus what the improved varieties can give us is something that remains to be addressed by our experts. And also the question, another question is, where the indigenous crop varieties and seeds are superior to the commercially promoted varieties, who owns the indigenous variety? Who should take up the responsibility of having this indigenous variety registered on the national register such that it can also be popularized, it can also be accessed, it can be multiplied and made available to all farmers? All of these are actually issues that are coming up as we try to make farmers more resilient to climate change. And also we understand that there are varieties that can be developed and may be gazetted for application in specific agroecologies. And also where some indigenous varieties can perform in only specific agroecologies. And yet we understand that developing or registering such varieties at times, almost of the times, as the experts can tell us, requires even multi-location trials to know or to understand that indeed this variety can perform in all the locations. For example, in Uganda, where we have multi-agroecologies. Now, where we have indigenous breeds that are superior or have some superior characteristics, who takes up this responsibility to conduct such multi-location trials and to come up with guidance to farmers on how either to register such varieties, how to multiply, popularize, and make other farmers aware of existence of such varieties. All these are issues that we would actually want to understand more and come up with assessments or even technical reports that inform us about these barriers, and then we move to the next step of better addressing these barriers to prime our seed systems and to support our farmers to get out of the challenges that they are facing to increase food production and meet the demand that we have in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, that this webinar is just in time for us to act. We are looking forward to sharing with you our experience and also understanding or learning from you the experiences that you have at hand in terms of the barriers to registration of local or farmer crop varieties on the national register, and how these varieties can be multiplied and scaled up for the benefit of farmers and also for the benefit of us, and also for the benefit of us who consume these products from farmers. Ladies and gentlemen, Without taking more time, I again welcome you to this webinar and thank you for the time that you have given us to participate in this webinar. Thank you so much. And I take the microphone, the virtual one, back to Rosemita to facilitate this webinar. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Ziwa. And colleagues online, I think it has been well articulated where we are, where we want to be, and why we want to be there. So right now, I would like to ask the Secretariat for the Water Resources Institute to share a small video as per the program. I think, Francis, you can post the program in the chat so that whoever joins at whatever time, they are able to know where we are and where we are going. So can we share a small video, and after that we shall have a contextual presentation on the seed system dynamics, and then we shall have move to the next presentation. Over to you, Water Resources Institute Secretariat, to share the video.
Francis, can you share the video? I hope you have it. Share the video.
Muted on your side. I don't know, the voice isn't coming out. Francis?
Yes, Rosmita.
Or anybody from the Water Resources Secretariat?
Yes, Rosmita.
We don't seem to get the sound from your side. Is it okay for everybody online?
For me, it is
Rosmita, the video is running.
Yeah. Yes, we can hear as well, but the video has paused a bit.
Yes, I paused just to confirm that we are getting the sound, everyone.
No, we are getting the sound as well.
Rosmita, over to you if you are online. Rosmita, are you there? Yes, yeah, over to you. Are you there, Rosmita?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, I take charge then, yes. Okay, over to you. And I want to request to those people who have their mics on, if you can mute. We'll give you an opportunity
Hello.
to speak. So Shira and Janet, can you mute your microphone so that we don't get the noise from that end? Thank you very much. Rosmita, over to you.
Okay, colleagues online and Commissioner Dr. Kalist, am I heard well?
Yes.
Hello?
We can get you.
Yes, we are hearing you
Hello.
very well, Rosmita.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, Rosmita, we can hear you.
Okay, that's great, Francis. Yeah, so welcome back from that short video. Yeah, from that short video, you're welcome. I hope you are able to see some elements, and then when we open up for the discussion, these are some of the things you can reflect on. So from the video, from my presentation, and from the presentation of the FAO's field experiences with the farmers, we should be able to also get some bit of understanding. This so that we are able to deliberate and be able to enrich our understanding, both as FAO and also to your side as practitioners. So a very quick one here. We are just going to share some contextual issues here in Uganda about the seed system dynamics, and also reflecting, as we said for the theme, we are reflecting on the barriers that inform the registration. Because as my previous speakers indicated, legalizing or formalizing the way seeds are used in the country is something that is very, very important. So we draw from the fact that agriculture and livestock are major sources of income, like my team leader has just said, and also emphasized that climate change affects the farming households, just a reflection, because most importantly for this particular presentation, it affects the quality of seed and also the feed that we go into, especially the livestock system. And also then it also affects, it creates or has impact on the changes to and spread of pests and diseases. This is very, very critical. We have gotten feedback and from other partners, especially those who are dealing with pests and diseases. And also it has an impact on the changes in water availability and the agroforestry practices. So that's why you have been able to see things like cutting trees, reforestation, you know, the discussion that we really had in the Water Week a week ago. These were very, very pertinent issues, especially the issue of water availability and agroforestry practices or environmental practices that are either responsive to adaptation for climate change or responsive to mitigation, and also responsive now to the new concept of proofing. How do we ensure that we don't get the effects? So, but all this in place, the smallholder farmers or the smallholder farming household are characterized with low adaptive capacities and limited livelihood diversification. So then to us, this is a red flag. As FAO, this becomes a red flag that we need to pay attention to building smallholder adaptive capacities, and also diversifying their livelihoods so that they can be able to cope with the effects of climate change. In the context of seed system dynamics, these further constrain the livelihoods of these water-dependent farming households in Uganda. So we have understood that multiple channels provide seed for the smallholder farming household. And this is where this is the critical dynamic in the seed system, that we have so many, as we are going to see in the presentation, the different channels that provide seed for the smallholder farming household is something that we need to pay attention to, because majority, almost 80%, produce their own seed, and then they save their own seed for the next generation, or they share among themselves as household. So those household level dynamics that seem not to be formalized, that seem not to be understood, is something that we need to pay attention to, because it's a big number. There are also input supply shops that provide also a big chunk. And so the fact that you see 79 and then 65 is that there are multiple choices. There are multiple, it's not a stratified access that I either do A or I do B. You have multiple choices. So you find that people buy at the same time, they share as a family, and at the same time they get from the government. So, but when you look here, the most important thing that you need to understand is the different proportions and how heavy each proportion seem to be. And so this is something that we need to pay attention to. Okay, sorry, that could happen. Do you have me on?
Yes, Rosmita, we can hear you.
Yes, Rosmita.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I seem to have lost my slide. Somebody requested to join in. When I clicked join in, it's okay, so I can use another. So as I was saying, that for us, this is something very, very important, multiple channels, different channels, and this is the hallmark for formalization or registration. So, but this is not a lamentation. It is not, we have not lost it. There is a point of redemption that the government is aware. So we have understood that the government is aware. The government has understood that this is something very important, and therefore put for us in place a sort of part of the mechanism that I was saying, the national seed strategy that provides us sort of the comfortable bed where we can address our major constraint of multiple channels that seem to be not, some of them are not formal, some of them are not regulated. So that the national seed policy becomes the hallmark in this whole constraint, the major constraint that we have understood. And most importantly, it addresses concerns of the seed industry with a vision of competitive, profitable, and sustainable market-led, regulated, and coordinated seed industry. So with this, we have understood, and we do believe that it will help to ensure the availability of adequate, high quality and safe seed on the market. And eventually we shall have an increase in agricultural production and productivity, which is one of the mandates of FAO. And also eventually, as we do the betters to improve the standard of living, the food security, as you know, we focus on the 4 betters while ensuring that we don't leave anyone behind. So as we make sure that we don't leave anyone behind, the seed policy also supports seed that is produced by smallholder farmers, and that has been under the framework of quality declared seed, which is a class that gives room for the smallholder farmers to produce their own seed and have it formally recognized under the seed system. So with that, you find that the farmers are able to at least produce their own seed, like the efforts that were done by ISSD. The efforts that were done by ISSD, there was a lot of capacity building, there was a lot of policy harmonization, there was a lot of creating understanding at all different levels where the farmers, the smallholder farmer, is able to produce a seed. And so if the seed can be declared and be registered and be understood, then we think that, as my previous speaker, Dr. Ziwa said, that the issues of productivity and production will be addressed when these smallholder farmers can be able to have their seed, which is formally understood or registered or recognized through the system. I don't want to say registered because later in the discussion, we may find that actually registration may take a different form. So the barriers that we shall discuss will tell us what exactly the smallholder farmer seed system should be to encourage people to be able to have a declared seed for everybody. Okay, yeah, there was a technical issue here, but my colleague has fixed it. So with that, we understand that several organizations are involved in the seed sector, but our key attention here is the organizational and the institutional context. That's where we are saying that the smallholder farmers who are not the companies, the seed companies, for instance, that we are seeing. And this is where these are the ones that are mainly involved in the quality declared seed that I was talking about in the previous slide. As you know, that FAO, our flagship implementation program, is the farmer field schools. So it works, the farmer field school methodology for FAO and the one that we adopt for the climate change program here in FAO focuses on how we engage farmers through their field school methodology to be able to grow the seed and then have it as a formal seed within the formal system. And so the next presentation will be giving us the field experiences of farmer, what attempts, how is the situation, so that when we get a reflection on the barriers, we are reflecting on that in the context of the farmer field school, which is the flagship methodology for FAO in implementing climate change programs. So I know the participants online, you either interfaced or working or have a very big experience on these different organizations like the BSLS, the SACCOs, the CDD groups, the QDS groups, by the way, quality declared LSP groups that were formed by ISSD. So all that experience that you have is the reason why this webinar is happening. Can we share from your experience, what has been the barrier that you think in your context, either of the Village Saving and Credit Association, or the SACCO, or the QDS LSB under ISSD, or Feed the Future, also did a lot of capacity building and organizational setup for quality seed production and cross sharing of the seed among the farmers. So what is your experience? What barriers do you understand that exist, or what constraints? Don't be bogged down by the word barriers. What bottlenecks, what constraints, what factors do you think are preventing people, the farmers, from having their seed like declared as a quality seed, because QDS is now the bottom line for the farmer seed declaration. So this organization, in the nutshell, that you are working with, that like Farmer Field School, that is a flagship methodology for FAO, they provide opportunities for growth and development of the seed sector. That's why we as FAO, we recognize that it is important that we focus on the seed sector, we focus on these small organizations and build their capacity to be able to have a formal system of the seeds. So the other aspect, that was the organizational context. We go to the policy and regulatory aspect, which is the constraints and opportunities that we see in the seed policy that I highlighted at the beginning. So it gives some bit of components or instruments that are very important, and I picked them to highlight with yellow areas that we think are relevant to this presentation for you to think, for you to trigger some thinking on how you think we can understand the barriers, and thereafter the FAO has a bigger intervention in that direction. How then do we address those barriers under the different climate change programs? So for instance, in the seed policy, under seeds and plant regulation, it is mandated that these are regulated, but also it provides only for the certified seed, 1 and 2 generation for the seed. So if this seed that is being produced by the Farmer Field School, by the VSLs, by the CDOs, is not certified as a second or first generation, so what happens to it? So to me, I understood that this also is an opportunity for the barriers. It's a constraint listed there, but it sort of prevents those that have seeds that are not registered. And also the article does not provide for registration of traditional varieties. So that has been a big discussion here in FAO among the climate change team, that what do we do when we were in Amuria looking at the granates? They clearly told us that the value chain development for the granates should focus on the traditional varieties. And that is where we said we needed to sit down and understand the seed system. So with that, the issues of benefit sharing, if there are land races that have been multiplied, as we shall hear from the field coordinator, how do we do benefit sharing? So all these are things that we think are very important to trigger understanding, your reflection on the barriers. Even as I speak right now, you can post your barriers, your understanding, or what you think is a barrier, just post it on the chat. We have a team of rapporteurs and note takers. They are picking all these ideas and we shall consolidate. We don't need to wait for the plenary, but as we talk now, as we engage, as we think, our mental modeling can help us to be able to put some of the ideas in the chat and the team will pick them. So you can also look at under MAIF, it has a responsibility for design, establishment and enforcement of certification, standards and method. This could be an opportunity, but maybe in the methods and procedures, when you look at them, you people out there who are technical specialists or experienced or practitioners, what do you think in the procedure? Can our smallholder farmer in the farmer field school or in the CDO meet with the procedures and methods? So we need to reflect, and then that gives us an understanding. So very quickly, this is the layout of the seed system. There are two coexisting seed systems, the formal and informal seed system. And this is the structure. I picked it from the policy. Those who can access the policy, you can also look at it. But basically, this is for enhancing our understanding of how the whole system is structured. Like I said, this paper is about, presentation is about system dynamics. So we need to understand the structure so that we understand the dynamics within the structure. So we have the seed companies, these are formal, they are registered, they have a marketing production system, they have a plant breeding, but then the informal one where we are talking about LSBs, where we are talking about farmer field schools, the FFS, all these are producing seed that is going to the seed user. So what dynamics do we see there? What barriers do we see there? What constraints do we see there that can also help us to reflect and generate the barriers for seed, for formalizing these seeds that come from the informal system? So with that, I beg to submit and introduce the next presenter, or if there is a question, clarification or feedback, we can take one or two, and then as the next presenter gets online, and those are the field experiences from FAO that we shall be sharing. Any question, clarification or comment? We can take like 2, max 3, because we are going to have a bigger session of the open discussion, so that, and this is where all these reflections and sentiments can be brought in. Over to you, colleagues online. Is there anything, clarification? Max, we can take 3, just for triggering a further understanding of the seed system, and then I submit to the field experience by Madame Brenda Piloya. If there's none and Madame Piloya is ready, we can also go straight to the next presentation in the interest of time. From Thomas, how does the soil management fit in the seed system? Seed productivity is affected by soil fertility other than water. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Can we have a soil specialist online to help us? Can I get a volunteer with a practitioner in soil management? Can I get a volunteer online? Can a volunteer raise your hand? Can I get a soil specialist? Or if you don't raise your hand, can you type in the chat? Can we get a person to type in the chat? How does soil management fit in the seed system? Okay, David Ogwang, our field office coordinator, is a specialist in that area. Can you be able to respond to that? Okay, so as we move along, we shall get feedback from a soil specialist here in FAO. We have 3 of them, they are online, so I'll get in touch with them and then they will post the feedback. Okay, so I think let's move to, farmers have potential and right to produce and own seed. Is it a crime for them to own it anyway, whether registered or not? We do not want to make them slaves of the seed companies. That's a nice one, Brian. So members, can you reflect on that? You can post in the chat. Brian has a very invigorating comment that farmers have potential and right to produce their own seed. Is it a crime anyway to own it, or whether registered or not? We don't want them to be slaves of the seed companies. So there are many questions in there or invigorating statements. Colleagues online, you can pick any of that and maybe say, why should the farmer be a slave to the seed companies? Or is it a crime anyway to own it, or whether registered or not? And Brian says that anyway, is it important, or is it really necessary that we have the farmers' seeds formally registered? So of course, the answer for me would be to reflect on why the seed policy, and the seed policy is there to institutionalize, organize, and make sure that we have all these quality checkers in the seed system. But anybody can push their ideas in here. That's the purpose of the plenary, to pick your ideas, and then we can deliberate them. Because actually after this, we shall be having a set of physical dialogues where FAO will have dialogues with the Water Resources Institute, and the input we get from here is what we are going to use to structure the physical dialogues that we are yet to hold next month or so. So why have our organic seeds systematically been weeded out? Can we have a bank for organic seeds, which we grew up using? This is given the hybrid seeds have proved unsustainable. So Patrick, that is nice. So you can also raise, because we want to see the barriers. So are you saying that, like how the previous speaker said, that do we really need to go for registration? So registration maybe is also a barrier by itself. And here you are saying that organic seed system was maybe doing better. So formalizing maybe is also a barrier. So things like that, please go on and share, okay? So I open to the next presentation in the next 2 minutes. I still have only 2 minutes. I can take 1 minute, and then the next minute will be for migrating to the next presentation. So meanwhile, I invite Brenda Piloya for the next presentation on the field experiences of FAO to do with farmer field schools. Thank you very much. Over to you, next presenter.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can hear me. So I am giving a field perspective of what we have seen regarding barriers to registration of local or farmer crop varieties on the Uganda National Register. Understood. In the field, we work with different stakeholders. We work with farmers, we work with extension workers, we work with organizations such as the district farmers organizations or other NGOs with whom we closely implement. And as we have engaged with the different stakeholders, there are a number of things that we have observed. It's we understand that seed is an important input into production. And because seed is an important input into production, we find farmers are very, it is a critical stage for the farmers. They are closely engaged in producing the seed. And this involves, as we use the farmer field schools. And during the farmer field schools, there are trials that the farmers conduct. And as a result of this, they have identified seeds. They've identified seeds, and we have understood that through this process, we have good practices. We have good practices that the farmers have come up with as a result of this. We will give you an example. As part of the climate adaptation, we've been working closely with farmers to do seed multiplication. In Ngoma, we have farmers that are doing a multiplication of pasture seeds, as you can see the example of the lady. And then we also had an exciting opportunity in Kamuli, where the Farmer Field School Group, Kisa Mukasa Farmer Field School, decided to carry out a trial. And they had the improved carrier species and then the indigenous, and they wanted to find out how do the two perform. And through their study, they were able to find out that the improved variety grew faster, had a faster growth rate. And in terms of coverage, it was also coverage of canopy, it was also faster. But for the local variety, it was more tolerant, especially during the dry season, it stayed longer. So they decided to, as part of adapting, to incorporate both, to use both the improved varieties and the local variety as well. And we've understood through this that it's important for them, but the question then is this the good attributes or the quality attributes of the local varieties? Are these being, are we not missing this out as a result of it not being registered on the National Seed Register? And what could be some of the reasons why this is not happening? Could it be that there is no clear linkage between what the farmers are doing and the trials that are required to be done during the registration process? So this is what some of the aspects that we have looked at and understood. And then also, could it be that as the farmers are doing, they're multiplying, they're doing selection, and they're picking up superior attributes, they are not aware of the need to do registration of the varieties and what this process does? What could be some of the barriers that we are seeing here? And then also one of the challenges that we observed was that as the farmers are engaged in the process of seed multiplication, they are identifying superior attributes from the seeds. Then the question becomes, how can these good practices or technologies actually be upscaled? We have found that as we tried to scale up and work with the farmers to multiply, when it came to procurement of some of these local or indigenous varieties that the farmers requested for, one of the requirements from the organization is that there needs to be technical specifications with clear attributes of the variety that we want to promote. And we normally find this where there's the varieties have been registered, but where we have understood and we are seeing that the farmers are actually doing the multiplication and selection, and they're identifying superior attributes, but these have not been registered, it becomes very difficult for us to actually say, okay, this is the variety that the farmer is working with, this is what they want, can we actually promote it? So we understand that as a result of this gap, it becomes a bit difficult to promote or scale up some of the good technologies that actually the farmers are able to identify in the process of seed multiplication. And then also it's become, we have understood as we've worked with the farmers that a variety may not, during the trial, be very successful, but somehow it links to the community. And as the communities continue to multiply and select, they become successful, but there is no feedback to the laboratories or the research institution on this success. So could it be that because of a lack of linkage between maybe the farmers, the extension workers, that we are not having the feedback to the process, and so that even when a variety may not have been successful initially, but as farmers work with these seed varieties, they are able to actually work with them, select, and the seeds become successful, but this does not get back into the register. And we find it there. And then when it comes to scaling up this technology, it's a challenge. So these are some of what we have observed and understood as we have worked with the farmers, the barriers that we have understood. And then we also know that sometimes farmers prefer what is not produced, what either the tests or what they do not want to work with what is probably in the lab. So they'll say, no, let's go ahead and do the production of the seed. Could this also be a barrier that would be hindering the farmers from saying, okay, let's go ahead, let's take these varieties and have them tested? Or like we said, could it be that they are not aware of the processes that are involved? So we would like to hear from us also, what are some of these barriers that we are seeing that are preventing the registration of crop varieties on the national register? And yet we can clearly see that farmers are working very closely, and in the process, as they do the selection, they do the multiplication, there are superior traits that they have identified in certain varieties, but we cannot, we don't have them registered. So what are some of these barriers that we are seeing? And then another, one of the questions was, why should we have the seeds registered? And as I mentioned in my previously, that when we have the seeds registered, there are distinct or clear attributes that are specified. And this becomes important when it comes to scaling up technologies, because it clearly specifies why are you using this variety, what are the benefits that this variety has. Maybe it's high in proteins, maybe it's high in vitamin C, so can we be able to promote it? So when the farmers continue to work and they discover a certain variety or a superior characteristic of a variety, but it does not go registered, for maybe an organization that would have an opportunity to scale up this technology or to promote it, there is a gap. So why then do we see that the farmers are working, producing, multiplying seeds? We are getting superior traits from certain varieties, just like I told you, as they do their studies, they identify certain local varieties or indigenous varieties that they continue to work with, but we are not having that on the register. Why are we not seeing this? Could it also be because of lack of knowledge in the process, or even awareness that there is a process of registering? So this, please feel free to put your views, or even as you have interacted, because I believe that we have different categories of people on the webinar. What have you seen? What has been your experience? What do you think, or what have you understood as barriers to registration on the National Register, so that we are able to work together and identify maybe solutions that can address some of these barriers. Sometimes the barriers could be social barriers. For example, we are saying maybe some people prefer to have what they feel like indigenous or local. And then when you talk about having something from the lab, their perspective changes. So if there's more awareness created, would they be able to take this on? So please feel free to either put your view, or what you have observed, or what you think are these barriers on the chat. We are still assessing what the barriers are to registration, and we'll continue consulting with you to understand at a bilateral level what the status quo is, so that together we can be able to address what these barriers are. Like someone said, could even just the act of registering itself be a barrier? What can we do about that? Thank you very much. I would at this point like to hand over to Rosmita. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that presentation, Madam Kiloya, for that presentation. I'm being told there is quite some good information in the chat. Procedures required in registration don't favor our poor rural farmers. Instead, they are structured to only the rich seed producers. That's very fantastic. We thank you so much for that. And there's another information asymmetry. Yeah, information asymmetry. Most farmers are not aware of the formal structures. Absolutely, Oscar, thank you so much. And so these are the kind of things that we'd like to continue trickling in. And so as we come to this end of the notes, these are just background notes to trigger our thinking, to trigger our understanding, so that we can share it and be able to broaden the understanding of these kind of barriers. So these barriers, in the nutshell, they affect a wider scope, the water, because once they affect water productivity, food productivity or crop productivity for that matter, at the lower end, then also other inputs like water, environment, also then they become sort of dysfunctional once the mediating factor like seed is not addressed. And that's why this webinar is very important, collaboration with the Water Resources Institute, that it's important to understand that other elements of productivity like water, soil, like Oscar mentioned before, the issue of soil becomes dysfunctional when the seed, because the farmer or the farmer looks at the output of the farmer from the process, unfortunately, I think through value chain. So the output is the produce, either like you see that woman is growing watermelon, and so for her, what she wants to see is the watermelon. But in the watermelon, there are other in the seed, the water, the soil, and other knowledge and information components. So if the seed is not, the seed issue is not addressed, that's our thinking or our understanding, then other inputs, including water, the environment, the soil, become sort of compromised in terms of functionality to deliver productivity and production for the smallholder farmer. I thought this was very important so that people know the nexus between water and other elements, between water, seed, environment, and other elements, so that we can now get all these feedbacks in terms of the constraints, the barriers. The middlemen are the killers of smallholder farmers. I don't know whether they are killers or not, but that comes in from Prince Mulumba. That is very nice. They take it all and the farmers remain at the mercy. I don't know what, but it is very important, as you have said, the role of the middlemen has to be clearly understood. The functionality actually just goes beyond the role, it goes to the level of functionality of the middlemen. To what extent are they constraining? I don't know middlemen for where are they middlemen? Middlemen, you need also to be clear, Prince. Middlemen for where and at what point do they sort of kill, if I can follow your word, or constrain or limit or sort of become a barrier for the indices. That also you can throw in your chart so that it's clearer, the role of the middlemen or how are they affecting. So colleagues, I was reading, maybe how can we see if there are more charts? Procedures are required. Our indigenous seeds have been dependable. However, when it comes to generation of the seed, they seem to go on and on and on. How can we include seed production quality assurance? That's a nice one. At smallholder level to ensure that the seed quality is maintained, especially for the indigenous. I think this is very wonderful, Solomon Jane, that the issue of quality assurance for the seed. So this is the barrier, because I think quality attributes are some of the dimensions that you require for seed registration. So then if we don't have an assurance system for the seed, then it becomes a little bit tricky on how this seed can be a formal seed that is available. And therefore, as we have said, and I reiterate, that the functionality of the seed determines the functionality of all other inputs, including water, environment, soil, and other transportation resources. Different levels of seed standards also limit the farmers to formalize. Yeah, that's nice. Their seeds, that is straight, it's clear, it's a very nice barrier. Yeah, so some seed varieties, especially rice, are being abandoned because they attract pests like rats in case of rice. Less of Kaiso and Super are being dropped in the preference for a new variety. I have seen this. So thanks a lot, Sanga Thomas. I think this is also something very nice. We are even, you've helped us. We are coming in with other factors. Actually, when we shall be doing the dialogue, this is when we shall bring in all these elements that determine functionality, and then we see how the seed nexus with other variables like water. Now you have brought in the aspect of rodents, for instance. So the seed other factor nexus will now generate other elements that are barriers. So even we are thinking that, for instance, policies, structures, systems are the barriers, but we are saying, no, come on, there's another nexus factor like rodents, which is becoming a barrier. So at first we were seeing water and we were seeing soil, and now we're seeing another element. Yeah, so somebody said, Grace, you say that funds could be provided with organic seeds to plant and be preserved for learning purposes. That's a very nice one. But what is the barrier in that? Or what is the role of the schools? Is it an institution? Okay. So with this, I would like to hand over to my colleague Brenda to take it up in the next year. We shall be co-moderating the discussion to trigger more discussion on the barriers. So Brenda, can you also engage our participants to generate more barriers?
Thank you very much, Mita. Let me see if there is It would be good to first do a needs assessment or a baseline study on farmers and clarify what farmers prefer, be it indigenous seeds or improved seeds, to be able to have all key stakeholders input into this poll. Thank you very much, Teddy. This is noted. What we're giving is, like the title says, barriers to registration of local or farmer crop varieties on the Uganda National Register of Varieties understood. So what we have understood through the observation in the field and our interactions. So as we mentioned, we're still in the process of assessing this and gaining information. Thank you very much. We'll take this into consideration, but I believe that also in your engagement or interaction with the farmers, with different groups, you may have seen certain barriers that are, like we mentioned, farmers are engaged in producing seed, and through their trials and experiments, they're actually identifying varieties that have superior attributes, but this is not registered. And we mentioned that if it's not registered, sometimes it becomes difficult to upscale and know these technologies because it might be localized and yet it could do well in another area, but because this information is not out there, it is not known. So it's one of the ways that we could actually upscale this. But then why are we not seeing this seed going back or the register actually being updated? Could that be a constraint? So that is part of what we're doing in this webinar to trigger that thought process and pick that information. And then we have Ndabarema saying the presence of a terminated gene in some of the seeds being promoted is one of the fears that we have, because they have gradually disseminated the traditional crops in some countries, thus perpetuating dependency on copyrighted planting material. So Ndabirema, I don't know if, yes, and could I also request members, please raise your hands. We have a number of people on the panel. They'll be able to see and identify and pick you up. So in Ndabirema, I just want to clarify if this is one of the constraints that you think is preventing the registration from happening, but we'll still continue engaging in dialogue and discussion. And then Christine says there are policy issues that have to be addressed at the ministry level. There are stringent procedures that farmers have to go through to register seed, which have to be dealt with. Besides, the feasibility of farmers undertaking the registration individually is limited. They have to be organized in production institutions. So thank you very much, Christine. These are some of the constraints that are coming out. Oscar says indigenous seeds face an existential threat. How are various stakeholders trying to address this challenge? Thank you, Oscar. We still want to hear from the participants. What is your view? What is your take on this? Samuel says, I joined late because I was having a link. He's given us his contact. So we'll be engaging with him. Yes, thank you very much. So as we mentioned, we are still in the process of assessing these barriers, and we'd love to hear back from you, even as you think through and ponder on what you actually think could be stopping or preventing registration from going on, or what you have understood. And as Rosmita said, we'll be having a dialogue later to get more information. So at this point, I think we still have, okay. We have one more. David saying registration costs for farmers who produce seeds are expensive. So this is also a barrier. So at this time, we'd like to wrap up. Okay. So members, please continue putting your input, your thoughts, raise your hands, write on the chat. I know you've interacted with farmers, you've worked closely with farmers. Yes, John, your hand is up.
Hello.
John, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to contribute. I'm Kaganga John, and I'm a smallholder farmer. And
We don't hear you, John.
Sorry. Are you not hearing me? Because I have unmuted.
John,
are you
you're
not hearing?
muted. Could you please unmute?
Yes, I have.
Hear you.
No, we are
Yes.
hearing John.
Okay,
Brenda, we
then
can hear John. Maybe it's your mic.
Okay, if you are hearing me, it is fine. I'm saying that I'm Kagaya John from Mityana district. I'm a smallholder farmer and managing a farm organization known as the Chikandwa Environmental Association. This topic is very good, and we are so great that you have come up with this webinar. First of all, one of the barrier is that the seed policy, the law and the seed policy is understood by people at a higher level. But I think it should also be understood, or there is a need to create awareness, whereby even we smallholder farmers at the village level, at the grassroots level, we can understand it, its advantage, and then we can also tell you what we think would be better or not better. Then secondly, there is we are getting worried. People have been mentioning about indigenous seeds, but there are some seeds which cannot be produced by seed industries. And the problem, they are also getting extinct. And as you are aware that once we decrease the species of the seeds, it means we are decreasing the food. And that is leading us to food and nutritional insecurity. Once we have a variety of seeds and a variety of food, it means we will be food secure. That is also something I would like also you people at the high level to think of. And then there is also something which we should also think about, that seed saving for the smallholder farmers is a culture which can take a very long time to be wiped out, if it is to be wiped out. But it is also helpful because the farmer always cannot go all the time to the shop and buy, especially when we are facing climate change problems. Therefore, I am suggesting that even this seed industry produce the industries which are producing seeds, they should be writing on the packets and they mark them that this seed is sold once, or sold is planted once, or planted twice, or planted thrice, or never plant it again. You plant it once. Therefore, some people, some farmers are tempted when they buy the seeds, they are tempted to save and later on plant, and the second planting doesn't do well. As I am concluding, we have also something to do with the field school. This farm field school is very good, but in Uganda, it is not well promoted. I think we have also to emphasize the farm field schools, the farmer field schools. They are very good, but farmers, some are not aware, and some don't take it serious that they are it is something to be promoted. Even at the higher level, very few people also understand the importance of the field school, the farmer field school. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Some of the barriers for your input, some of the barriers you've mentioned include lack of awareness. You said for the law and seed policy is understood at a higher level, while the farmer down there is not aware of this. And then we've also brought in the aspect of the seed saving culture and the need to indicate on the package more information regarding the seed that would help on the use of this seed. We also noticed it actually when we were doing a study at the side of Karamoja that the seeds that were coming from Kenya were preferred because of the packaging and the information that had been put there, and yet our seeds, which were more superior actually, were being left because people did not, they kind of believed the other seed that had the information on the package was better quality because it had more information, while ours, the local one that had better attributes, was being left out. So we could see that actually information plays a role in uptake of that technology. So do we have Bernadette here saying how about the GMO issue? Have farmers been educated on differentiation so as to understand the quality attached to indigenous seeds as a way for encouragement for registration? So Bernadette, thank you for this. We are also going to take note of this and see what is going on in the sphere and whether also this is can be a barrier. So do we have any other feedback or comments on what you're seeing as barriers to registration as you've interacted? I know we have facilitators here who have worked closely with the farmers. What is your understanding? What have you understood as you've worked with the farmers in terms of registering their seeds or barriers to registration of the local crop varieties on the Uganda National Register? So we'd like to hear back from you. Shortly, we'll be having our team leader coming to give remarks. So we have about two more minutes. So please keep the points coming. I would just like to, as we get to hear from you, one of the discussions I was having this morning, which was quite interesting, was a person who has worked closely with the farmers actually mentioning or giving me an example of how a variety did not pass the trial, but somehow it sneaked out. And as the farmers worked with this variety, it was successful and it had good attributes, but even up to this point, it is not on the register. And yet they are producing it. What do we think could be some of the factors, or what have we understood as some of the factors or barriers to this registration? We already know they've mentioned lack of awareness, maybe from the farmer, that there's actually this process that needs to take place, or there is a break or in communication or linkage or feedback from the farmer through the extensionist to the research station. Is there any other barriers that we could see here or we've understood exist? We'd love to hear back from you. Please feel free and share what you think. Okay, John is asking for a presentation after the webinar. So if we have the registration, definitely we'll be able to share. So thank you very much. Members, do we have any more points? Francis, let's see. Kathy, do you have any comments? I know you've been working closely with the farmers, and even now we are planning for multiplication. What is your understanding of some of the barriers that could be preventing registration on the Uganda National Register, and yet we see farmers as they're breeding, multiplying, they're identifying seed with great attributes, and we don't have this on the register?
Yes, thank you, Madam Brenda.
Yes.
My background is very noisy and it may be inconveniencing the meeting. Thank you.
You can type. Atai Bernadette, do you have anything to say? Bernadette, would love to hear from you. Gerald, Dr. Gerald Chitaka, do you have anything to say? We'd love to hear from you following your close interaction and engagement with farmers over a period of time.
Unfortunately, I have just arrived on the net. I had challenges with opening, connecting, so I didn't get the presentation, and I'm just coming at the end of the presentation. But what I know is that definitely we are losing a lot of genotype from our local varieties of crops and even animals, and we need to protect them. And some of them are actually a bit more resistant to the climate than some of these new varieties that are being introduced. So it's a very, very important thing that we actually try to store some of our genotypes, both crops and plant and livestock, and to characterize them anyway. But since I didn't get the whole thing, that's what I can say right now, and I don't want to ask you to repeat for me.
I'm not going to repeat, but you've said something important, that it's important to characterize these genotypes or traits, and part of the process of registering entails that. So then our question is, why are we not seeing this happening? We've said that we are working with farmers. They are very much involved in the process of producing seed or identification and selection, and they're actually getting crop varieties with excellent attributes, but this is not on the register. Maybe could you be thinking of some attributes or barriers that could be preventing the registration from happening? And yet, as you mentioned, it's important that these genotypes or attributes are characterized and registered. That's part of the process of actually knowing what we have there, their importance, and how we can protect them and conserve them. So we'd like to hear from you on that and other members or participants.
Okay. I think for me, I think one of the things is that we have a mindset problem, in that we tend to think that some of these varieties or seeds that come from, have been bred from elsewhere, are better than ours. That mindset also actually goes through even the educated people and the ones also part of even the research people, such that you find that there's a sort of a bias. And you know, even when the research is done, it's done for only a few attributes. But we know that climate change and other attributes, it's not only production and how the yields, it's not only the yields that are most important, but there are so many things that are happening now that due to climate change, that actually some of our local varieties might actually be more suited for this kind of environment. But because of this mindset, that we have, it is a big challenge. The other thing is that, of course, our farmers are not empowered enough to understand about the need to protect their knowledge and their technologies, and actually form maybe their own organizations that can actually protect this knowledge, and even they can be supported, do some local research on their own, as far as identifying these varieties and actually getting them to be owned by them, such that they can actually even keep the rights of those seeds and materials that we are local here in our environment. That's what I can say for the moment.
Thank you very much, Gerald. You've alluded to the importance of registration and the benefits it brings. Atai Bernadette, your hand is up, please. Feel free to speak.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I did come in a bit late, but I would like to say thank you. The discussion is fervent, and my issue as an environmentalist in promotion of agriculture issues, I see people were talking about soils. So I'm wondering, is this entire country profiled in terms of the quality of soils, and as such encouraging people to do their agricultural practices based on given qualities of soils they have on areas? Or have we just let them grow based on what we know as typical traditional growing crops? Because I would imagine these are part of the issues that could enable people get the right seed for the right place and in the right climate for better quality and production, thus enabling registration of these businesses to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette, for that. We've asked, have the soils been profiled so that when farmers are growing, they're actually growing the right variety for the right soil type? So I know we have some specialists here and they could respond to that, but we'll take note of that. On the chat, we have Samuel. He says, I agree with you, and we have to capture this as one of the recommendations that need to be urgently. Okay, he was agreeing to Dr. Shitaka's, I think. We have John also saying that we need to promote organized village seed bank assisted by technocrats. So that has been noted. So thank you very much for your input, your feedback, and as we continue to dialogue and hear back, we look forward to getting more information so that we can see what are those barriers and which we have understood and how can we address them. At this juncture, I would like to hand over to Rosmita. Rosmita, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. And yeah, I was excited when I was looking at the charts, and I almost told Brenda not to stop. But because of time, we really have to continue with the program. Colleagues, friends, partners, I've seen implementing partners for FAO. Thank you for being in this very important discussion. It is a nexus discussion. I reiterate that we are looking at the importance of seed, or the centrality of seed, and how it affects productivity, given that we have inputs like water, soil, information, knowledge, and whatever that determine the productivity. And once that is not well addressed, given the centrality of seed, we shall not get the outcome that we want to see in production and productivity as our mandate and in partnership with the Water Resources Institute. So at this particular time, I would like to invite our team leader for the climate change program, and that is Dr. Kennedy Ibokwe. He will be giving us some wrap-ups in relation with the discussions that have been going. And please continue putting your messages in the chat as we have a wrap-up from our team leader, and then we shall have another wrap-up, the ending wrap-up, and from the Ministry of Water. Commissioner Carlist is with us. He will guide whether he will take it up or delegate somebody from the ministry or the Water Resources Institute, and that will will lead us to the close of this webinar. Over to you, Dr. Kennedy Ibokwe, our climate change program team leader. Thank you very much.
Kennedy, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Rosmita, we don't hear. Can we check to know whether there is anybody speaking? I think a number of us are not hearing.
Doctor, he was speaking. However, we've noted that there is a technical problem from his side, and we are trying to sort it out.
So in the meantime, he's using this computer named Sheila, so you can hear from this computer.
I cannot. Okay. Okay, good. I don't know whether to start all over again.
Yes, please.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yes, Kennedy.
Okay. Just a moment. Just give me, sorry, guys. Okay, let me begin all over again. All right. Okay, I would like to welcome all of you who are participating in this very important seminar. I would like, on behalf of FAO, Dr. Antonio Corrido, FAO representative, to welcome each and every one of you to this very important webinar on seed. As you know, there's nothing we can achieve without a seed. Seed is very fundamental to agriculture and to our food security. And I'd like to thank Water Resource Institute for this partnership and giving us the opportunity to organize this webinar. And in particular to Dr. Callis, not only for this current partnership and webinar presentation, but for all the ongoing partnership we have had with the ministry through the directorate headed by Dr. Callis. Now, if we are talking about barriers to registration of local farmers' crop varieties on Uganda National Register of Varieties, essentially, if we take a system perspective, what we're talking about here is how do we ensure seed security system for the country? How do we ensure household food security system for Uganda? And when we talk about household seed security system, essentially what we are saying is that when the household has sufficient access to adequate quantities of good quality seed and planting materials of preferred crop varieties at all times, following both good and bad cropping seasons. So that is what it is from system perspective. And we also say that seed security exists when men and women within the household have sufficient access to quantities of available good quality seed and planting materials of preferred crop varieties at all times in both good and bad cropping seasons. Now, what this means is that we need to think broadly and in a systematic fashion, what are the possible elements critical to ensuring seed security system for the country or for the household? There are about 5 of them. One is the seed availability, which is essentially seed supply at the right time and place. And the second one is seed access, which means ability to acquire seeds. And the other one is seed quality, looking into germination, physical purity, seed free from pests and diseases. And the other aspect is the varietal suitability of seeds. And here we're talking about how crop seeds are adapted to a local environment and the needs of farmers. Now, the other important element is also on stability of the seed system, especially in the context of shocks and stresses in the context of climate change. Now, when we look at these elements, and when they are absent, they essentially constitute the barriers to registration of local farmers' crop varieties. And then, incidentally, these elements or barriers are in fact derived from food and nutrition security framework. Now, for many of you who are familiar with food and security framework, there are also 5 elements. One is food availability, food access, food quality, food preferences, and stability of food security in the context of shocks and stresses. So what it means is that we cannot talk about seed security without talking about food security. We cannot talk about seed security without talking about food security. So they go hand in hand. And when you look at the barriers to seed systems, of course, those barriers, they are also seen in terms of 5 key elements. One is either lack of availability of the seed, lack of access, poor seed quality, lack of access to preferred and adapted varieties, and lack of stability in the seed security system. Now, perhaps if we are to really look at the barriers to seed registration or seed security in general, maybe we should be talking about resilience of the seed system. And when we talk about resilience of the seed system, what exactly do we need to do? Now, there are, of course, various opinions on what we can do. One is that maybe the farmers need to diversify their livelihoods in a way of spreading the risk. The other one is also crop diversity, also as a way of spreading the risk. The other one is strengthening the ability of the farmers to be able to source seed from different channels in terms of amount, in terms of proximity to the market. Now, the other also is looking at different policy environment, including the informal sector, that are also important in seed production, including access to information about climate and seed sources and prices of seeds. So there are a number of things that we need to look into if we are to ensure resilience of the seed system. So the discussion you had this morning is very relevant. I think you have touched on the various important aspects that we need to take into consideration. So I'd like to urge all the participants, as you go from this meeting, and let the discussion not stop here. Let's continue to have the discussion. But at the end of the day, it is the farmers that we should always have in mind. Ability of our farmers to have access to quality seeds, which can lead and boost production at the farm level and the country as a whole. So with this, I'd like to say thank you for your active participation and all the inputs you have provided. I think it has been a great lesson and learning for all of us. And finally, I would like to thank the organizers, Rosmita, Brenda, and Sheila, and all others who are working behind the scene to make this presentation today possible. Yeah, thank you so much, and more power to you. And at this point, I would like to invite Dr. Calist to have the last word before we say goodbye to all of you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kennedy, for those interesting words and also summarizing really what the webinar has been about. And colleagues, you must agree with me that this has been a very interesting topic of discussion, talking about availability of seed and also linking it to food security, and also ensuring that we have quality seed so that we can help the farmers to improve household incomes and of course food security, and also looking at different ways through which we can ensure availability of good quality seed and the barriers. So thank you very much again, the team from FAO, for really this very interesting topic of discussion. From the comments we have received in the chat, you can see that has been very interesting. And this is the whole purpose of these monthly webinars. We want to go into those topics that we don't normally talk about, so that experts in those topics share with us and help us to appreciate the issues that we need to be giving attention. Thank you once again. I want to request those also who have some interesting work they are doing that they would want to share with the rest of us. We have people from within Uganda, from outside Uganda, attending these webinars. So even if you are outside Uganda, you can share with us since we have these webinars online. Our next webinar will be on 28th of April, always the last Friday of the month, so take note of that. Information will be shared with you. And again, those who are interested in presenting, reach out to the Water Resources Institute. We'll prepare a schedule. Dr. Kennedy, I know you and your team, you are doing a lot of work. We still want to get those different pieces of work you are doing shared with the rest of the people. So feel free again to contact us so that you can have another webinar, really sharing the work that we are doing. I want to thank you, Dr. Rosmita. Thank you very much again for working with the team at the Water Resources Institute, Francis in particular, organizing this event. I want to thank you on behalf of the Ministry of Water and Environment and wish you a nice weekend. Let's continue reflecting on the topic, how we can ensure that we have good quality seed available so that you can ensure food security in the country. With those, I want to wish you a nice day and thank you again for being part of this webinar. Over to you, Local Resources Institute team. In case there is any further information share, you can do it. But I want to bring this webinar to a close. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
People are checking out. Okay. All right. For